Perhaps you're wondering what to avoid now that your child is an adult. Or maybe your relationship has become strained. Or maybe your child stopped speaking to you and you want to understand why. I'm a psychologist, and this video will help you understand the most common mistakes parents make with their adult children. Number 1, taking the relationship for granted. Family relationships are very close. When we call a friend family, it's to say that we feel super close to them, like family, and that they'll always be connected to us. But this doesn't mean that family relationships can't be broken beyond repair or that they can never fall apart. It doesn't mean that adult children have to put up with everything. Familiarity may breed contempt, and sometimes we end up treating the ones we're closest to the worst because we're taking the relationship for granted. Like never before, adult children are willing to cut ties with their parents if the relationship is toxic. So taking the presence and support of an adult child for granted, in the worst case, could cost you the relationship. Number 2, defensiveness. Defensiveness means to be more concerned with protecting oneself than with what's going on in the adult child's inner world. So this means that whenever the adult child approaches the parent with some feedback, a request, or a desire to discuss something from the past, the parent responds with rationalizations, explanations, blame, or arguments like, "You had it so much better than I did." That may be true, but it doesn't mean that the child wasn't hurt or that their perspective isn't valid. Number 3, guilt tripping. This is when parents use guilt to try and get something from their adult child. Often this is more time with the child or grandchildren. The more a parent guilt trips their child for time spent apart, the more they'll say things like, "You're still alive," or "Finally you called back." And the less the child will be able to get in touch with their own desire to be with the parent. The guilt trip drives out the child's longing for contact. Number 4, criticizing the child's confidants. As we grow up, we rely less and less on our parents and start forming trusting bonds with others. And parents need to allow that to happen. It may be hard not to be the child's prime source of connection anymore, but growing children and adult children need to develop a healthy independence from their parents. If a parent criticizes the child's confidants, their best friends, spouses, therapists, it won't go well for the parent. It'll alienate the child. Number 5, not acting on feedback and requests. If an adult child has feedback or a request and the parent doesn't listen, or they listen but don't act on the request, that will strain the relationship. And this isn't to say that parents have to agree with everything or do everything their adult child wants. It's healthy for boundaries to be in place in everybody's life. But in connection to taking the relationship for granted, a common mistake parents make with their adult children is not taking their requests and feedback seriously. Number 6, wanting their child as a soulmate or best friend. Children are never their parents' soulmate. If someone goes into parenthood hoping to get a best friend out of it, they won't be the kind of parent a child needs. They'll rely too much on the child, and they'll burden the child with responsibilities it shouldn't have to carry. Number 7, claiming to be the only authority on the adult child's childhood. Parents and adult children may remember things differently. Adult children may have perspectives to share that they didn't talk about as children. They may want to talk about difficulties they went through as a child that their parents never knew about or understood before. It's important to be open to these kinds of conversations and to understand that The parent isn't the only authority on the adult child's childhood. Number 8, trying to buy the child's cooperation. Expensive gifts or threatening to cut the adult child out of the will can't fix emotional problems. The adult child's cooperation can't be bought, and threatening to cut them out of the will won't make them more inclined to reciprocate genuinely. Number 9, codependency and enmeshment. These are terms for relationship and family dynamics that are intertwined in a way that's harmful. In a parent, this means not giving their adult child the space they need to be themselves, to grow, set limits, feel strong, and be independent. It could also mean that the parent is making the adult child responsible for the parent's emotions. Or it could mean that the parent relies too much on their child, that their life revolves too much around the child, that they have few other interests or things that fill their life with meaning. Imagine being the sole source of meaning in someone's life. That's a huge burden to put on a child. Number 10, allowing your adult child to define your worth. No one else should be able to define our fundamental worth as a person. If you make your worth, your sense of self-worth, your self-esteem depend on what someone else thinks of you, it'll put you on very shaky ground and give too much responsibility to the other person. If a parent can't regulate their own emotions and stay in a stable frame of mind on their own, they'll often place the burden of this task onto their adult child. If a parent's sense of self-esteem is influenced by the ups and downs in the parent-child relationship, they won't be able to be a steady source of support for their child. They won't be able to listen with empathy, especially in tough conversations, because they'll be distracted by their shame and managing their low self-esteem and trying to get the child to be different so they can feel good. If a parent sends the message, "I need you to be different," or "I need you to talk about something else so I can feel good about myself," it doesn't leave enough room for the authentic adult child. I think emotional closeness is so important in relationships, and I often see people hurting relationships and others to protect themselves in unhelpful ways. We can't be happy like this behind our defenses and walls. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing. Till next time, take care. And remember, close relationships require vulnerability, especially the relationship between a parent and their adult child.